Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Tom Brenneman.
Pete.
Thank you. You can follow us on YouTube. Chatterbox Sports page. You can always download us if you'd prefer that route in podcast form. Just search Off the Bench with Tom Brenneman and you're dialed in. Busy day today, men. Casey, Paulie, how we looking?
Looking good, Tom. Bengals schedule's out. Reds win again. Going into the weekend. Rain's supposed to stop here this afternoon, so we're good. We're good.
Case, you all right?
Yeah. Doing
sure?
good. Yep.
Okay. Because we're going to find out here shortly.
You feeling better, Tom?
I am. Things went a little south. We'll leave it be at that. All right, so what do you think, right? The Bengals 23-24 schedule came out last night. We already knew who they were going to play and where they were going to play in. Now we know when they are playing. 4 primetime games, no surprise there. 2 at home, 2 on the road. There could be a 5th, depending on how things shake out during the season. They will open the year on the road. Oh boy, Casey, did I think of you. They are opening the season on the road in Cleveland, Ohio. They're in-state rivals. They're division rivals. Sunday, September 10th, that's a 1 o'clock kick. Cincinnati has not won in Cleveland since 2017. And they're 2-8 against the Brownies in the last 10. Casey, your thoughts? Deshaun Watson, Nick Chubb, Myles Garrett, season opener. In Cleveburg, as I like to call it.
They stink, Tom. They just stink. We'll be fine. Opening day? Well, it's not opening day for the Bengals because that's at Paycor week 2. But opening season week 1 against the Browns, not a problem.
I thought Charlie Goldsmith made a really good point about the pass rushers that the Bengals are going to have to face in the first 4 weeks and trying to figure out what they're going to do with potential injuries to the offensive line that are still lingering and having to get off to a strong start. You're playing divisional opponents. This is a big-time start to the schedule. They can't do the 0-2 business again. If they really want to compete for that number 1 seed, they can't be doing this 0-2 business again. They can't be doing – They gotta perform better to start the year.
All right, we're going to talk a lot more about the Bengals schedule, and we're going to talk about their offseason. I mean, Tim McGee, former Bengal great, never pulls any punches. We've been asking the question all offseason. Of course, the NFL season never has an offseason. But we've been asking, are the Bengals better today than they were at the end of last year? And we're going to ask Tim McGee that question coming up at 11:20. Other football news. Does Tom Brady ever have a bad day besides splitting up with his wife?
Just in general, no. The man does not.
Yesterday, Patriots owner Robert Kraft said Brady will be honored at the Patriots season opening game. It's the first of many Tom Brady events during this season in New England. And why not? I mean, he was only there for 18 years, won 17 division titles, played in 13 AFC championship games, and won 5 Super Bowls. Then later in the day, we find out that Brady is in deep talks about becoming part owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. The ownership stake is described as passive, meaning he would not have any control over football decisions or football operations. It is interesting to note that this would be the second time that Brady has teamed up with Mark Davis, who owns the Raiders, in ownership of a sports franchise. The two have ownership together in the WNBA's Las Vegas Aces. In baseball, Reds got a nice series win yesterday over the slumping New York Mets. Cincinnati got 4 runs in the first inning in what was the rubber game of that series at GABP, and that would be more than enough in a 5-0 win. 4 pitchers combined on a 6-hit shutout. Ben Lively, nice to see him pitch well. At one time, he was a big, highly rated prospect. He went to the Phillies in a trade for Marlon Byrd. He's been injured a lot. Reds bring him back. He's into his early 30s now. He gets the win in relief. Kevin Herget really good, getting the save, pitching the final 3 innings. The Reds will begin a 3-game series tonight in Miami. Now, we hear so much about bringing your young guys up, right? Graham Ashcraft's going to start it for the Reds tonight, but Yuri Perez, 20 years old. He's one of the most highly rated pitching prospects among all teams in Major League Baseball. The Marlins are running him out there tonight in Game 1 of the series. Reds beat writer Bobby Nightengale Jr. is here at 11 to talk all Reds baseball. Tampa Bay walloped the Yankees 8-2 yesterday. I only bring it up because the Rays are now 30-9. 30-9. They already have a 9-game lead over the last place New York Yankees in the AL East. Is Aaron Boone in trouble?
Couldn't imagine being 9 games out of first place. That's not this city. Keep going, Tom.
On the hardwood, what a time to watch the NBA. I don't watch a lot of it, rarely ever during the regular season, but these playoffs have just been incredible. You start last night in Philly, and the environment in that place was off the charts. The Sixers had a chance to close out the series against Boston and reach the Eastern Conference Final, but no. The Celtics open a 16-point lead. Their best player, Jason Tatum, can't throw one in the ocean if he's sitting in a boat. Philly jumps in front with 3 minutes to go, but then everything changes. Tatum gets red hot, hits 2 huge threes down the stretch. Boston wins 95-86. Game 7 Sunday at the Boston Garden. Where was James Harden? I ask all the time. In big moments, in the biggest games. And he's had a couple of good games in this series. But where is James Harden? Nowhere to be found. The invisible man at NCN. You know what NCN is?
Nutcutter Nation.
He's not on the team.
Ooh.
He's not on the team.
Got cut.
Not even in the galaxy. The top seed out west look like the top seed out west. They look like the best team in the NBA, which they were during the regular season. Denver. If somebody says to you, if you're a Phoenix Suns fan, right, and they're on the brink of elimination, if somebody says to you, your team's going to score 51 points in the first half and going to hit 7 3-pointers, guys are going to be lighting it up, team's going to shoot 52, 53%, whatever it was, you'd say, where do I sign up for that? Here's the problem. They scored 51. They gave up 81. 81 points. When I coached girls 5th and 6th grade basketball, which, by the way, I don't know if I've ever told you guys, we won a championship. I don't know if I've ever told you that. Girls and the boys. My 5th grade girls could play better defense than the Suns. That is humiliating. 51 points, and how about Nikola Jokic? 32 points, 10 rebounds, 12 assists for Denver. Again, I continue to ask the question. I love Embiid, total gamer. How in the world did Jokic not win his 3rd straight MVP? His numbers were better this year than they were last year. Nuggets are in the Western Conference Final. Who will they play? Well, that could be decided tonight in L.A. Game 6, Lakers and Warriors, with LeBron and company leading that series 3-2. Golden State star Andrew Wiggins might not be able to play. He injured some cartilage in his rib cage. That's an unbelievably painful injury. Tip-off is at 10 o'clock tonight. Before that one out west, Miami has a chance at home to wrap up its Eastern Conference semifinal series against the Knicks. Heat lead 3-2, tip-off at 7:30. And last but certainly not least, we have a lot to talk about today with FC Cincinnati. They have drawn the New York City Red Bulls in the second round of something called the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup. Now, that's while you're playing inside the MLS season. Is now all of a sudden you're playing in this tournament. And you're still playing MLS games. You're just sandwiching in during the week this tournament. Tommy Gelehrter, voice of the FC Cincinnati, and they're having a great year. I don't want anybody to get me wrong here. I'm not beating them up about that. He's going to join us at 10:30 to talk about it. What do we have? We have somebody paying money to jump in here, right?
Yeah.
What is this all about? There are a lot of people that are in the chat before we even got on the air today. Of the thousands that are here, we have a lot of regulars. But, Casey, what is this all about? People boycotted the show yesterday based on your behavior Wednesday. Could you explain this to me, please? And what is this all about hillbillies and stuff? What is that all about? How about Casey was made to apologize, and his future wife was even on my side? That comes from Chad Waits. What is that all about?
Well, Chad's from Goshen.
I remember this. Okay, but help me now. How did we get to this point?
Well, in my apology that I made for the chat the other day, I said from one hillbilly to another.
So you called yourself a hillbilly? I
did.
Okay, so this isn't one of these deals where you called him a name, you acknowledged I am, and he is.
Yes.
Okay, but maybe he doesn't like that term.
Well, regardless, I still apologized for my behavior the day before. In the chat, they didn't like it. They didn't like the apology, Tom. I don't know what I did to get them so riled up now this morning. They're just all over me today. They weren't like this yesterday. They were fine yesterday. All of a sudden, now that you're back, it's like they're trying to tattle on me.
Man.
Well, I mean, I miss one day and I come back and there's mayhem in the chat. I'm hoping that everybody, can get back here.
Tom, before we, because we have plenty to talk about today with the Bengals schedule and with everything else, Tom, I got something for you.
Yes, sir.
So yesterday I went to Glenview Golf Course. I don't know if you know Glenview, but it's a great golf course.
Of course I do. Beautiful place.
I play there all the time.
Yep.
So I go up to Glenview, and it was incredibly busy. I didn't have a chance to play because they were so busy. But this was the second time.
Wait, time out a second. You went all the way up there. You didn't call to find out how busy they were.
It's right by my house.
Oh, okay.
It's right by my house. It's right around the corner.
All right.
So I was like, you know what? I'll just go to the driving range. This was the second time that this has happened in my life. When you go to the store, Tom, what do? You go shopping, right? You go for a product. You go to Kroger. You're looking for some kind of a product.
You're walking to Target. Most men know exactly what they want. Walk in, get out.
They have something to sell you.
Sure.
When you go to a driving range,
well, it all depends on what's going on that day, but go ahead.
They only have one product for you. Golf balls. What did they not have yesterday, Tom? Golf balls.
Let me guess. Golf balls.
So I went up. There was a guy in front of me with a bucket. There were no buckets sitting there. So I went over and asked some nice man, hey, you done with that bucket? Can I get that so I can get my bucket of balls? So I let the guy step in front of me in line while I went and got the bucket. The guy walks away from the machine. He goes, sorry, man, just got the last bucket. Machine's out. That was after about 10 years ago, I went to a Topgolf, which I worked at Topgolf. I love Topgolf. It's one of my favorite entertainment. I love going to Topgolf. But I went to a Topgolf one time, and the doors were closed, and they had two employees standing at the front door handing gift cards out, and they said, sorry, we ran out of golf balls. I said, this is either them entertaining themselves, trying to figure out which excuse they can come up with that everybody, hey, let's think of a different excuse to everybody, or a driving range ran out of golf balls. So that's now twice in my life I've gone to a driving range and they have been out of golf balls.
Well, I got to tell you, it gets back to a broader question. I walked into a jeweler yesterday late in the afternoon that's right around the corner from my house, and he was telling me the story about how he needs help, work-wise help.
Yeah.
And he has 2 jobs open and had like 10, 12 people apply. 3 or 4 went through the interview process. They get down to the final 2. They're very excited to have these 2 young people. They want to work. They need a job. They're paying good money. And yesterday, after one had been told that this person was hired, yesterday was supposed to be their first day on the job. No phone call, no show.
Uh-oh.
Now, if I had $5 for every time I've heard that story from different friends that have businesses and that kind of thing where you need help, right? I'd be a millionaire. Not having golf balls comes down to getting out, somebody driving around, scooping them up, right?
Yeah.
And then the actual labor of getting them out of the machine, the cart you use to pick them all up, and then bring them back and load up the machine where you're hitting your little button with a token to get the
That's exactly right.
Right.
Because I like to play, and a lot of times at these courses when they have those leagues on like Monday through Thursday, they'll have all the adult leagues go out there and play, and so a lot of times they just do like open play afterwards and you can walk on. So sometimes I try to walk on, or if not, no big deal, I just go to the range. Nope, not last night. But all right, we got plenty more to talk about. I just have to get I just had to get that off my chest. Driving range, no balls.
All right, so we're gonna talk.
Let's talk
Bengals schedule a little bit.
Let's talk schedule, baby. Casey's chomping at the bit.
We already mentioned the first week, the Browns, and I already voiced what I think is going to happen. I mean, this is just to kind of set a precedent on why I'm so positive on Bengals. They're going to, for the first time, this is a wooden table. For the first time, Joe Burrow is going to have a full offseason and not be hurt, have COVID, or have his freaking organ taken out of his body. So,
wow.
Just for that reason alone, I'm really high on the Bengals to start off the season. I think they have in my opinion, I think they have a really easy schedule.
All right, let's put up. There's no such thing as easy.
To begin the season.
Let's put up the schedule as it looks right now, okay? And we're going to walk through this. We'll be joined by Tommy G to talk a little bit about FC Cincinnati here in about 10 minutes. But let's start Bengals v. Browns. I am with you all the way. I think you make a fantastic point about Burrow, right? He's had the whole offseason, whole 9 yards. Everything's working right. I mean, good Lord willing, that doesn't change because that happened with him last year right before, the whole training.
I've been knocking on this wood really hard.
That's right. All right, but look, I know we joke around on this show a lot, but it cannot be denied. Cleveland has given the Bengals absolute fits, especially in Cleveland. They haven't won since 2017. With all the stuff that Joe Burrow has done, we talked about it the other day. He hadn't won a game yet in Cleveland. That has not happened. Not one time. And they've not won a road game in prime time, the franchise in general, since 2013. They're going to get a chance to change that this year. But you say easy. I sit there and look at myself, or look at this schedule, and I say to myself, okay, depending on how you look at the Browns, I know how you look at them, and then I know how I look at them. I think they're 2 very different points of view. I think the Browns present a tremendous challenge. If you're going to acknowledge that Joe Burrow is coming in healthy with no issues for the first time, you also have to acknowledge, right?
Right.
That Deshaun Watson is coming in with no issues for the first time, whether they be off the field, primarily, exclusively off the field. Right? He's had the full offseason to get ready. To get ready, as I like to say, right?
Right.
Okay, so, and we know they like to run the ball.
Yep.
That was not a strong suit of the Bengals last year. I mean, statistically, it looked pretty good, but the teams they played that could really run it ran all over them. All right. Then you have the next game, which I think is, Paul brings up a great point about you can't. Last year they started 0-2, but only one of the 2 was a divisional game. They lost to Pittsburgh. And you knew the next time they played them, they were going to kill Pittsburgh. You knew it. They were a better team. They just had a bad day. But they lost to Dallas in week 2 last year. This year, you start back-to-back division games. And for my money, that week 2 game is a monster game.
Yeah, I won't lie to you, Tom. The first 2 weeks are probably the most important weeks out of the entire season. And that's really weird to say because you can't afford to start off 0-2 or let alone 1-1 to any. You got to start off 2-0 in your division. Get out early and get a solid footholding in your division. Because if you win those two games,
doubt.
more than likely you're going to be on top of your division throughout the entire rest of the season. More than likely. I know the next time they play is week divisional opponent. It's week 11. But man, you get those 2 early wins. I don't know, man. I really like my chances for the Bengals to win the division, which is all that really matters boiling down at the end. I know we talk a lot about first place, but focus on the building blocks to that, right? Division, then we go for first place. But anyways, like you said, that's a monster game.
I'm surprised that's not a prime time game.
And we'll get into that too.
Yeah, we'll get into that too.
They only had 4, I think.
They have 4, and your max you're allowed, I believe, is 5. And I
think
that
it's
right?
6.
Five.
The Chargers have 6.
I thought it was 5.
I thought the max was 5
I think the max
too.
is 5.
Well,
Did they get
the Chargers have 6, and I can confirm that for sure. But they could have extended it to 6, or I know in the past it was 5. Last year it was definitely 5.
Yeah. Interesting. I wonder if there's some kind of an exception for Thursday nights or something like that. I don't know.
Which to me, just that in and of itself, okay, is a joke. That the Chargers are in prime time. It's the LA market. I get it. That makes sense from a just straight market size standpoint. But I mean, when the Chargers play at home, well over half the crowd is made up of teams that they're playing in their own building. I don't know. I still think the Bengals have a chance to be flexed into more primetime games, especially when you get late in the season. We talked a little bit about that 2 days ago. Tell you, our guy, OJ's 94 Bronco, he's been saying this now for weeks. Look out for the Rams. They were Super Bowl champions over the Bengals just 2 years ago. They had all kinds of injuries. And that would be KC week 3. Let's go back to the schedule here for a minute.
Yep.
So, if the two of you were betting, and I know you will be when the time comes, if the two of you were betting after the first 2 weeks of the season, the Bengals record is?
I'm gonna say, I'm gonna go 3-0. The first, or you said 2 weeks?
First 2
I'm
weeks.
sorry. I thought you said 3.
Now that is optimism,
That
Casey.
would.
I'm gonna say 2-0. I really think they can do it. They can't afford to lose a game. That's all I can think of in my mind is why they can't. They can't afford to start slow this year. They have too easy of a schedule to start the season, to start off 1-1.
I'm saying 1-1.
You're saying 1-1?
I'm saying 1-1.
Okay. All right, then you get to the Rams in Tennessee. Look, the Rams are going to be better, but here at home, the Bengals are going to smash the Rams.
They got to win that
On Monday
game.
night. They got to win that game.
Yeah, they're going to smash the Rams.
And I think their interior of the offensive line is much better. I don't think Aaron Donald's going to terrorize the Bengals like he did last time they faced. So give me the Bengals on that game.
Now, your good friend Tomas, the best man in your wedding, who still has zero communication about the bachelor party.
What do you mean? We already got it all figured out.
I have not heard a word about it, and maybe there's a reason for that. But that's
No,
okay.
no.
That's okay. My feelings can be hurt.
We'll talk about
I'll
it.
get through it. But they're going to smash the Rams, and they're going to smash Tennessee on the road. They're going to go out to Arizona, and they're going to beat them. Then you start getting into some games that I think a lot of us, me included, and when I go down this schedule, I look at some games that I think you kind of blow off a little bit. But I think they are much more. I think this is a tough Bengals schedule this year, and it should be. You're a first-place team from a year ago, division champ. But the two games that stand out for me, now luckily both are at home. And there are a lot of other games we're going to get to later. But the two games for me that I look up there and I say, man, I think those are tougher games than you think, are Seattle and Minnesota.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that because I think Seattle is very underrated right now. But I agree, Tom. I think Seattle's one of those teams that people are just going to overlook on this schedule. I think that's a way bigger game than most people are making it out to be. And the Vikings, I mean, last year, they just managed to win, even though we all knew they were like...
Yeah, they were a fraud.
They were a fraud. They just kept winning games.
Right.
And depending on when that time, it's to be determined, depending on that time slot, if it's not 1 p.m., Kirk Cousins is in serious trouble. So maybe not so much the Vikings for me, but Seattle definitely. I think for me, when I look at this schedule, I think the first part of the season, they gotta start strong because I think it's the easiest part of the season. And then I would say the middle part, pretty tough. San Fran, Bills. I know you got an easy one with Texans, but then you play Ravens right after that on a Thursday night, so it's a short week. And then you go play Steelers. So you got 2 divisional games, 2 first-place teams, and a snoozer in the middle of your season. I think that's really tough.
I tell you, the back half of that schedule, man, and we'll get to that after we visit with Tommy G. We're going to get to that. But you look at those teams. One footnote, by the way.
Yeah.
You realize that by opening on the road and then your home opener is against Baltimore, the last 3 home games the Bengals have played are all against Baltimore. They played them in the regular season finale last year.
That's true.
They played them in the first round of the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
And they were on the road at Buffalo and Kansas City. And now they come back the following year, and their first home game is against Baltimore.
That's
just make it easy on the locker room.
I wonder how often that's happened. That can't be something that's very common at all.
There's
right? There's no way.
Is that the first time that's ever happened? It would not shock me if that is.
Yeah, I mean, is it conceivable if you look at a team, pick somebody like, I don't know, who's a team that makes the playoffs for years and years and years, it was New England. I mean, is it conceivable their last home game on a given year was against Miami, and then Miami goes up there in those lily white uniforms and the teal and all that nonsense and the snow and the cold and get run over by New England? And then maybe it's the Patriots' first game the next year. Maybe. But, 3 straight games at home, all against the same opponent. That will be the story. All right. Kind enough to join us, man. He's going to be busy coming up. He's already busy. Tommy Gelehrter, Tommy G, voice of FC Cincinnati. Tomas, how are you, young man?
Well, I'm good to see you again. Happy to be here and happy that the success continues to roll for the orange and blue.
Well, you're not lying. I mean, look, I want to stick before we get to some other topics that I brought up earlier, and I want to get into some of this stuff with you because as I asked you when you were kind enough to join us the last time, I think for a lot of people, especially with the momentum that FC Cincinnati is building, there are a lot of people that want to jump on the bandwagon, and if you're, working for a team like you with FC, you welcome all members of the bandwagon.
Yep.
But we got to have a little soccer 101 at some point today. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, there's no question.
Okay, I want to ask you first of all, though, just about the team in general. There was a game we talked about the last time you were kind enough to join us, leading up to the big game in New England. That turns out to be a draw. Come back, get a win. Second most points in the MLS so far this year. What's the state of the team as far as you're concerned right now? Where are they on offense, on defense, big picture?
Well, look, you're a third of the way through the season and have been fantastic. You've been perfect at home. They have won every single home match played at TQL Stadium. That extends the U.S. Open Cup, so they've had a couple bonus home games, and they've won every match. They've won 9 games across all competitions, and they've all been by one goal. So you can look at that and analyze it one of two ways. Either this is a good team that finds a way to win close games and hasn't conceded that goal that's turned those wins into draws, or you could say, hey, they're not scoring enough and you're concerned. I'm probably going to go with the former instead of the latter, because I think right now they're doing the right things, and that Pat Noonan has coached a fantastic team this year, and they've only conceded once in the final 30 minutes. And I take fault for that. It was a little bit of a broadcaster jinx, because as quickly as I said it, they conceded in the final 30 minutes. So, you hold on to that nugget as long as you can, hoping it ain't going to go against you. But look, they've only given up one goal in the final half an hour of a match, and that is huge. Offensively, sure, I think everybody wants them to do more offensively. Pat Noonan wants them to do more offensively. Brandon Vasquez wants them to do more offensively. Sergio Santos is hoping for more offensively, and the fan base is. And that's okay. This is a team that scored a lot of goals last year, but they continue to be very good defensively with their back line and their goalkeeper, their defensive midfield. Everybody's been so good back there that they haven't had to score in the numbers that they did last year. And so that's a positive. And at that 1/3 mark, 11 games into a 34-match regular season, they're right where they want to be.
Okay, let me ask you this. As far as you mentioned Santos, but as far as the personnel they have right now, and whether that be players with high upside moving forward for the rest of the season, is the talent there to start, in theory, becoming a better offensive team?
Yeah, it is, for sure. And Sergio and Brandon have a very good partnership up top, I think. I think Brandon really benefits from Sergio's speed. I've talked about it on a broadcast already a few times, but all I do is think back to that playoff game last year when Sergio comes off the bench replacing Brenner. He makes that great run up the left side. It pulls the defensive attention to him because of his pace, and then he makes a cross and delivers a brilliant ball to Brandon, and he scores what ends up being the game winner to move FC Cincinnati on in the playoffs. So I think the weapons are there, and I think that Chris Albright and his staff are out looking for some reinforcements, not necessarily to replace starters, but to provide depth, because you mentioned a very busy stretch coming up. We're going to see, if FC Cincinnati continues on in the Open Cup, then it's going to continue to be busy. And I tweeted something yesterday that right now, with the Open Cup win and knowing that they're going to play New York in 2 weeks out in New Jersey, they will now play a minimum of 39 matches this year. Last season, with 2 playoff games, they played 38. So they're going to eclipse that before getting to the playoffs. Wow. And if you're in the first round this year, you're guaranteed at least 2. And I think it would be tragically disappointing if FC Cincinnati is not in the playoffs. So tack on 2 more and you already at 41. If you advance any further in the Open Cup, that's 42 and so on beyond there. And if you advance in the League's Cup, which is certainly the goal, then you're 43 and you're getting closer to the mid-40s as far as that game load is concerned. So I think that right now the biggest piece is to add a few more depth pieces. They know that Brenner is leaving July 1st. After that match against New England, he makes the move to Italy. So they are looking, certainly, and Chris has acknowledged that to me in the interviews that I've done with him, that they're looking for an attacking piece to replace him, and they have the backing of ownership and the funds to do it. So I think there's a great opportunity to enhance what is already a very talented team that's firing on all cylinders.
From when you talk about going out, and this again now, Tommy, is MLS Talk 101. Okay, we know, and you just alluded to, we know, and you and I talked about this the last time you were on, how players' ultimate goal in a perfect world is to get and play overseas at the very, very highest level. It'd be no different than I made the analogy of a player playing in the Japanese league. They get a chance to come play Major League Baseball. That's what they ultimately want to do if they get the chance. Okay, having said that with soccer, so help me here and teach us something here. If you're looking for another player at this point in the season to replace somebody that's leaving your team, where do you go look for that player?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think it depends a little bit on circumstance. Last year, if you remember, they brought on Matt Miazga, who was Chelsea's property, Chelsea's player, but he had been loaned out across Europe and in different situations, but he came in, the transfer came from Chelsea. Now, this is a guy who played in Major League Soccer, got the chance to go over, didn't really get a lot of time with Chelsea, but he was back in their camp when he got transferred back, so you get a domestic player in that regards. As you look for players of the caliber, especially attacking players, I think there's a couple different paths, and we've seen a lot of success for MLS teams in going to South America and finding guys who have a very high ceiling, who want to come to America to score a whole bunch of goals with the hope of then being sold over to Europe. And so, sure, maybe that makes Major League Soccer a stepping stone. I think there's other guys in Europe who maybe have gone and haven't had the opportunity or haven't seen the playing time that they hoped when they got the opportunity to go over there. And now they want to come to Major League Soccer where they'll play every night. It's not exactly a Yerson Mosquera example, but Yerson Mosquera is an example of a guy who is in England, but there weren't the minutes for him. He's on loan, and I don't think they're necessarily looking for another loan situation, probably a purchase situation in bringing in an attacking player. But you're going to bring in somebody, and then I think they look, Europe is big. There's been success in finding guys in Asia who have played there, and guys in the Middle East as well, as those leagues have been elevated. So I think South America, though, is a major, major target. I know that they have a lot of scouts keeping an eye on guys down there because you find guys who look in Atlanta right now. Thiago Almada has been unbelievable. Best player in Major League Soccer probably this season. And Atlanta is going to get a very, very big check when he gets sold to Europe. And they thought they found him in South America, brought him in, and he's going to be moving on. So I think South America gets a lot of attention from MLS teams, and I think FC Cincinnati scouts certainly have their eyes there as well.
Okay, now get off FC Cincinnati. Well, not off the team. Again, Soccer 101 here. Okay.
Yep.
I sit there and I was talking about this with Casey and with Paul before the show, and as you know, big soccer fans. I'm a soccer fan. I played soccer. I talked about this, but I have a hard time understanding, and help me with this, and help our viewers with this. I start a season and I want to get on the FC Cincinnati bandwagon. And, man, it's been an unbelievable ride so far. All the things you just talked about, TQL Stadium selling out every home game, winning every home game, all those kinds of things. Okay, but I also know that when the season starts, or I'm starting to learn that when the season starts, I can have players taken away. We've addressed that. But now all of a sudden, once the season starts, there's something called the Lamar Hunt U.S. Cup that's actually going on inside of my season, right? Could you help me understand what that is? Instead of playing one game a week, playing the MLS season schedule, and now all of a sudden you're playing in something else.
It's a very unique situation, and it's unique to the sport, and it's very common across the globe. It takes place in England. If you pay attention, you have a favorite English Premier League team. They have multiple other competitions, the FA Cup, if you're lucky enough to qualify for Champions League, the Caribou Cup. And many of those are domestic competitions, such as the Caribou Cup, where you are competing against other teams in England. And the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup is just that. It's the United States, and it's all teams across all divisions. So if Tom Brenneman wants to put together a beer league team and compete with your buddies and try to qualify for the Open Cup, there will be qualifiers this fall for amateur teams to get into the U.S. Open Cup. And every once in a while, they will qualify. Every once in a while, they'll get past the first round or two, and you'll see a beer league team maybe in the third round playing a USL team or something along those lines. FC Cincinnati, when USL was Tier 3 in 2017, had that fantastic run when they made it all the way to the semifinal and led 2-0 in the 75th minute against New York. So it's an opportunity for teams across America to battle to win a trophy. And now FC Cincinnati's in the round of 16 and a win away from being in the quarterfinals in the final 8 of this competition. And there's a reward. There's a financial reward if you win it. But you also qualify for CONCACAF Champions League, which is the big competition of teams from across all of CONCACAF. So that includes North America and Central America. So you look at all these different teams that'll be thrown into the mixer. Last year, Seattle was the first team from MLS to ever win CONCACAF Champions League. LAFC has a chance to be the second team to do it. They just beat Philadelphia to move on to the final. So they will be playing a team from Mexico, just as Seattle did last year. And it was a pretty big deal. Now, Seattle went all in on that competition, the CONCACAF Champions League, because they had the opportunity to do something. They missed the playoffs for the first time in franchise history because of it. And this is where it gets complicated, right? Because FC Cincinnati has now won 2 games in the Open Cup, which is adding these midweek games. Now, this past week, 2 days ago, they played in the Open Cup. They don't play this weekend. So it didn't really affect how he looks at his lineup for the match on Wednesday or this Saturday because there's no match. But now they go Wednesday in league when they come back into play against Montreal. Mm-hmm. Then the massive Hell is Real game against Columbus on Saturday. Then they will turn around and play Tuesday in New Jersey. So that's a pretty quick turnaround after 2 big home games. And then a trip to Colorado behind that to get back in league play, and a trip midweek to New York City, home for Chicago. And if they win, then they're home for a game on June 6th. So now they're playing midweek, 3 straight weeks in a row, and that gives you 6 games in that's a 22-day period, I think. So that's where your depth is going to be tested. And that's where you have to make a decision as a coach, too, is what are you doing roster-wise and rotation-wise, and what are you prioritizing? Are you prioritizing those U.S. Open Cup games, or are you prioritizing your MLS games? Because remember, FC Cincinnati is having a pretty good MLS season right now and competing for a supporter shield. So it's a tricky balance for a manager. In 2017, when FC Cincinnati, as a lower division team, was that close, 15 minutes from going to the final to play Kansas City, they prioritized the Open Cup and got punished on a couple weekends after those midweek Open Cup games because they went all in to beat Chicago, to beat Columbus, to beat Miami, and even in that New York game. Then they played New York Red Bulls too, and it was an ugly result on the weekend. So you have to make some decisions. But, yes, it's very uncommon. It would be as if in the middle of the Major League Baseball season that the MLB teams took a break from the MLB season to spend Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday playing a series against a professional team from Costa Rica, or playing a series against a professional team from Puerto Rico, right. In a sense, right? But it's competing for another trophy, and you have an opportunity. You can win the Leagues Cup this year, you can win the U.S. Open Cup, you can win the Supporters Shield, or you can win MLS Cup, or you can try to win all 4, which would be pretty cool.
That wouldn't be bad at all.
No.
Tommy, I hope you'll come back next week.
Yep.
We'd love to have you back next week to get ready for that. And I know the game's in the middle of the week as well, but, I mean, that Columbus game, that's a big deal. We can talk more about that next week for sure. So safe travels, my friend. Godspeed ahead. Tommy Gelehrter, always great having you with us, buddy.
Yeah, sounds good. I appreciate it, and I'll look forward to next Friday.
Okay. Tommy's the best.
See you guys.
He's the best. He really is. He's the best. I meant to ask him while he was on here. Does he have some – Tommy, let me ask you a quick question. I hear you a little bit of an accent. Do you have some foreign blood or family with foreign blood? But
not directly. Like my grandparents, they immigrated during World War II, so they were Jewish, and their town in Czechoslovakia was under siege, and my grandfather had the resources to get out, so they came to Cleveland. He was Hungarian.
Kidding.
All the Hungarians went to Cleveland, so I'm from Cleveland. But when I got to Syracuse, and my roommates, who I'm still friends with and still have a group chat with today, they honestly, and it's funny because my freshman year they called me Kentucky Tom. They thought I had just a little bit of a Southern twang in my voice, and I can't explain it.
I didn't sense it as Southern twang. I
know,
sense
these
it
are all
as
the
some
New Yorkers,
kind of a European thing.
Maybe it's a little a nod to my grandfather from Hungary, who came over.
That'd be all right. He obviously had a lot of bravery to get out of there, so good for him.
Yeah, exactly. So came over on the boat to Ellis Island. So great story.
Him. Great to have him. Tommy,
all right.
Talking to you, buddy. You have a great weekend.
Be good.
Okay. Great to have Tommy Gelehrter with us. He goes by Tommy G, but we decided, and thank you for your help, Paul, because I really want to make sure we knew how to pronounce his name. It's not an easy name to pronounce. Good man. Good man. The chat is out of control. Gone way off the rails.
They're out of control.
This week is.
And later in the day, we're doing what today?
It's Casey's first ever chat power ranking. So
I think that's what it is. I think that's why, because everyone just doesn't know what I'm gonna do, and they want to be in the chat power rankings, but because I've been the enemy of the chat as of late,
they don't want to be in your rankings.
They're so thrown off right now. It's so hard for them right now to be cooperating.
There are some dudes. Here Tommy had talked about his family coming over, and PB's Ghost says, my grandparents came over on the boat to Ellis Island as well, and leave it to OJ's 94 Bronco as we go to break. El Paso is the new Ellis Island. We'll leave it at that, Ham and Eggers. Borders wide open. Come on in.
It's that time of the show, the Ham and Eggers. These guys are great. Trust me, I would know. I introduce all the best segments.
Whoa! 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 We're back. Feels like we should do this segment twice. Did not do ads yesterday, so we are here today. The Bengals Report, and we are talking a lot about the Bengals, is brought to you by Encore Technologies. Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data-centered world with a suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both
centralized computing modules and
we were close. It supports both centralized and work-from-home computing models to improve
efficiency and productivity.
That's right, Casey. Efficiency and productivity.
Ooh, you caught me
now,
off guard.
where do people need to visit?
Visit Encore Technologies.
But like on the web. Where do people visit on the web?
Encore.tech.
That's right, Casey.
Visit
And
the path of innovation begins here.
Yeah, I was going to say, what begins there? The path to innovation. The other thing, Pawnee Water. Here, hold on. Let me get a thing of Pawnee Water. It's empty. It's empty, but it's here. Pawnee Water. It's right here. Pawnee Water.
We just finished it.
It's great. It's made right here across the street in Hamilton, Ohio. Uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing that many other brands use.
Don't change it. Don't change it.
Okay.
Just leave it.
Okay. Okay.
Put it.
Okay.
Twist it.
Uh-oh.
Twist it. I want to show them.
Oh. Yes.
This is great.
The result is a healthy alkaline water that is also the best tasting water in the world. Visit PawneeWater.com. That's PAHHNI water.com. PAHHNI water.com to see where you can buy this great tasting water. Get your coffee from UDF. Drink Pawnee Water. Tom's about to walk back in, so I think this is as good as you're going to get here, Casey. What were the other two? It was get your coffee. What did I not mention? Encore.tech. Get your technology solutions from Encore and Bet with Betfred. Those are the other two. Okay.
All right, we got lots to come here today. We got good stuff today. We got Bobby Nightengale coming up, Bobby Nightengale Jr. Coming up to talk about the Redlegs starting a series tonight down in Miami. And that will be followed by 3 games in Denver. And by the way, kind enough to agree to join us next week, Monday, Drew Goodman, longtime television voice of the Colorado Rockies. So the Reds open a series out there on Monday. Boom Shakalaka says, Casey, you have a future on The Price is Right.
I guess I do.
Says you might need to nair those arms, though.
I got some hairy arms.
I mean, we have got some folks in here that just I love you all. You know I do. They also want to know why Paul is dressed. George Santos checking in after being indicted.
Yeah, wants to know why I'm dressed like a clubhouse employee of the Reds.
He's spot on.
Hey, the Reds won yesterday. I was going through my closet this morning, and I was thinking, hey, what should I wear? I'll get a polo. It's supposed to be a nice warm day out today. Maybe a little rainy, but a nice warm day. And I thought, you know what? Reds won yesterday. Casey didn't wear the Viking helmet. Hasn't worn it the last couple of days, so I'll bring the Reds polo out.
I have not. So I've been to 5 Reds games. Every game except for one has been a loss. So I think that also has something to do with some of the. We don't want me to go to a Reds game. That's what I'm getting at. I don't think it's the Viking helmet. I think it's me going to Reds games that is cursed.
Yes.
So I haven't been going, and they just do well. Whenever I go, they do terrible.
It's all right, Casey. You'll buck that trend.
Well, I don't think you're going down to Miami, right?
No.
You're not going out to Denver?
Nope, don't think so.
Okay. I want to I want to ask one question about, because, look, everybody, as you pointed out, they are on edge about the chat rankings.
Yeah.
Okay? And for those who don't know, please explain, Paul, what the chat rankings are. Because there's some people new to the program on a daily basis, okay?
Yep.
And we didn't really start doing this on this show until this week.
Yeah.
So could you please explain to those out there that have no idea what in the world we're talking about?
Yeah, generally, we at the end of Box Lunch on Fridays, it's the grand finale to the week. Everybody has so much fun in the chat. Really, we always talk about the chat, not to get too sidetracked here, but we talk about the chat almost like its own show.
Yes, it is.
Everybody comes in here. Everybody's friends with each other. We joke around. We kind of get on each other's cases. But at the end of the day, we're all good friends in the chat. We all have a lot of fun.
That's debatable. That's debatable. But go ahead. Very debatable. Go ahead.
And then at the end of the week, somebody gets rewarded. 5 people actually get rewarded being on the chat power rankings. Usually it's Reed, but last week he gave it to me, and then now this week it's Casey. It'll go back to Reed next week.
Well, somebody said in the chat they thought it was Nick Kirby next week.
Oh, is Kirby in charge?
Well, they just asked a question. I'm not saying that that's a fact. I have no idea.
Reed delegates. So if Reed wants to give it to Kirby, so be it. It's up to him. It was Reed's brainchild, so we let him rule the roost on that if he wants to. But anyway.
OJ's 94 Broncos says Everett 1, George 2.
We have plenty to talk about before we get to those that I think people will be fired up about here between 10:51 and 11:58 when we do them.
Okay. I want to get into, before we get to Bobby Nightengale Jr. coming up in about 10 minutes from now, your guy, did you guys get a chance to watch any of the NBA stuff last night?
I watched both games.
Okay, that first game, that was one of the weirdest games I've ever seen.
Yes.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. What's going on with James Harden? I just don't understand how you can be such a top-tier performer at some points and then just completely evaporate in others. I just don't understand the lack of consistency. I understand when you have a good game or a bad game, but to completely no-show there was one point toward the end of the game, I think there were less than 2 minutes left, and Boston had a lead. Jason Tatum had hit a couple of threes, but it wasn't insurmountable. Like in the NBA,
right.
You're down 9. If you're down 9,
because Boston looked like they were in trouble with 3 to go.
Yeah, and if you're down 9 in college with 2 minutes left, game's probably close to over. You're down 9 in the NBA with 2 minutes left, you're good.
Well, you're not good, but you're not done.
You're not done.
You're not done.
You're not done. You're not in a great spot, but you're not done. You hit a couple threes, boom, you're right back in a one-possession game. With the shot making of these guys, they can do that. So now all of a sudden you look at a situation where it's a 6-point game, I think, at that point, maybe 9 points. And Doris Burke, I thought, made a great point. They turned the ball over. Harden and Embiid didn't even get back defensively. It was like their body language, they'd given up. It's like they're fighting for their lives here. What are we doing?
Listen, this is what we talked about with it. There are stars, and there are people that are going to put guys like Harden in that next category. He's not. Statistically, he might be. Statistically, throughout his career, he might be. But as you know here in Nut Cutter Nation, okay, the true nut cutters show up at nut cutting time. And it's a very small group that are up there that are still left in this playoff. Curry's in that group. LeBron is in that group. Jokic is in that group. Jimmy Butler's in that group. Embiid, I don't know yet. MVP of the league, phenomenal player, right? And if you're going to give the guy credit for hustling down the floor and making that great block 2 games ago, right? You also got to point out as Doris Burke did, but not hustling back. I heard somebody suggest, and Paul, you watch a lot of basketball. I heard someone suggest when Embiid did not play in Game 1 and Harden went off, he was unbelievable, and they rolled Boston in Game 1. I heard a lot of people that are knowledgeable basketball fans, can't remember what it was on ESPN or FS1 or whatever it was, saying that they would seriously consider for the rest of the series running the Philadelphia offense through Harden and not Embiid when he got back. In other words, dumping it down in, all the kind of thing. Well, ever since then, they've not been the same offensive team.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's a hard sell.
I don't know if I agree with that, but
Okay.
I do see. I mean, it's tough for me to say that you have the MVP of the league out for one game and James Harden has a historic performance. You can't expect him to have a historic performance night in and night out, but to go for like 45, you're not going to get 45 out of James Harden every night. You're not going to get that out of James Harden every night.
No, but if your team's going to win in the playoffs, you got to get 25 out of Harden.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, he will truly be put to the test Game 7, am I right?
There's
if he
no
doesn't
doubt.
come out, if he doesn't come out then, man, it's going to be really tough for him to get into the Nut Cutter Nation.
Is there anything better than a Game 7? I don't care what sport it is. Of course, soccer, you wouldn't have that. But I'm talking about baseball,
Soccer.
basketball, football, you don't have it. Baseball, basketball, NHL. Is there anything better than a Game 7?
No.
A decisive game, period. It could be in a best of 5. There's nothing better, man. I mean, every single little thing is just under such a huge microscope. I'm guilty. We're all guilty of forgetting these guys are not robots, right? You know, that old adage, they put on their socks and pants just like you and me, okay? So human beings are going to make mistakes. Or you're going to miss a shot. It doesn't mean you're a bum. But, man, I mean, I've had a chance to broadcast a lot of baseball decisive games and series, including a World Series. And there's nothing like it. That Boston Garden, that would be a fun place to be. Now, the only thing that stinks is if you get one of those decisive games where one team just completely shows up and blows them right out of the gym, right? That happened with the Reds, for example, the last time they had a chance to win a playoff series in 2012. Win the first 2 in San Francisco, lose the next 2, and then here comes Game 5, and Posey hits one in the stands with the bases juiced early in the game. That game was over. What are you laughing about, Casey?
Nothing.
No, you have that grin on your face. What are you laughing about?
I'm literally just looking at some names on a list here, Tom, for chat power rankings. That's all. Keep going.
He's assembling.
I'm
Keep
listening.
on rolling.
I'm listening.
That's what my wife says, and I don't believe it. Or actually, that's what I say, and she doesn't believe it. I'm listening. I'm not hearing, I'm listening.
Active listening.
Have to be an active listener. Have you guys ever read that book, The Love Languages? Have you ever read that book?
Oh, Lizzie made me read that, or at least skim it. I skimmed it. I can't sit here and lie and say I read the whole thing.
Casey, have you read it?
No, don't think
There's
so.
5 of them, right?
There are.
Do you think after 23 years I should consider reading that book?
Why not?
You can always grow, right?
Well, it doesn't hurt anything.
For sure. And in fact, it might help, right?
You should do that. You got 3 weeks to read that book, Casey. Get on it.
Casey, you're getting ready to get married. You for damn sure. But I mean, Paul, whatever world that they're living in, right? I mean, they just got an agreement. They just
Pretty
got
good
an
one.
agreement. You and I don't live in that world, Casey.
No.
I sent her that clip the other day. I go, I'm sorry.
For what? What did you apologize for?
Well, I think it's more so just like she's like, get your act together. I'm like, all right.
Did she? Was
I'm
that
just-
was
I'm
that
just-
what she said?
I'm just
Get your act together.
I'm saving money. No, but I know. I'm saving money.
He's saving money, Tom. He's preparing. He's
Hey,
planning.
there's nothing wrong with
Scheming.
that. Here's what I like. And again, our good friend George Santos says, I've never read the book, but I'm currently using that book as a coaster.
He's been on one today.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be climbing up the rankings.
He is. He's had a couple good one-liners today. I'm note taking, fellas. Note taking.
But is this an accumulation on how they've been for the week? So have you paid any attention? Paul explained that earlier. The answer is yes. Have you really paid attention or made any notes since it's on you this week to choose the winner?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you know who's brought their A games going back to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Everett says, glad you're taking notes now, 30 minutes before the rankings are officially announced.
Well, I don't have to write everything. Some of it's just up here.
Since we're getting ready to talk about the Reds, boy, here's a great point. Derby Stardom says the Cincinnati Reds have won 9 consecutive World Series games. That's true.
9
in a row. That would be the final game of 75, Game 7. That would be a 4-game sweep of the Yankees the following year. And that would be a 4-game sweep in 1990 of the Oakland Athletics.
Well, let's make it 13. Let's make it 13 games in a row, Tom.
Tom, what do we have to do to get you to buy in on this team and what they're doing? What
is there to buy into? I mean, they are multiple games under 500. I'm not saying that there aren't some nice things to sort of jump onto and latch onto, but I'm not going to get carried away on this stuff. I mean, I look at the perfect example, and I'm going to ask Bobby Nightengale Jr. about this in a minute. I'm not all over the Hunter Green bandwagon. Okay? Now, let me say this. I am always consistent in this one regard as it pertains to baseball in any sport. The bottom line is, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is how many did you score and how many did they score. That's all that matters at the end of the day. So a quarterback can go 11 of 31, throw for 190 yards, throw 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. Did his team outscore the other team? Doesn't mean he had a great game. Did his team win the game? Okay? Hunter Green the other day. 5+ innings again, well over 100 pitches, gives up 6 hits and walks 4. He gives up 10 base runners in 5 innings. That is a guaranteed equation of more times than not getting your tail kicked. 10 base runners in 5 innings. Now, back to my original point. How many runs did he allow? He only allowed 2. So there's a lot to be said for that. But I continue to look at him, and I say to myself, jury's out. High upside, throws a ball through this concrete wall over here, no doubt. Hardest throw in baseball, can't argue it. Numbers back it up. But I'm not buying in yet on him. I think that he has an extraordinary amount of talent. I think that 99.9% of the pitchers in baseball would love to have his talent and his arm and his makeup. Seems like an awesome kid. He really does. Right? Easy to like. Great smile, great with the fans, all that sort of stuff. So, are there guys that are doing well right now? Is TJ Friedel having a nice year? He is having a nice year. But he's also in his, he's 27 years old. Jake Fraley, he's okay. He's 28. Okay? You're not building franchises around those two guys. You're not building winning championship division contending teams with those guys. They might be a nice piece on your team. Great makeup guys. Jonathan India, great rookie year, stunk last year. Off to a good start this year. Not a good defensive second baseman. I don't think he's playing the position that he's ultimately going to be playing. So am I all in on him? Nope, I'm not. Stevenson missed almost all of last year. Year before, is potential there? Does he look like he could be a really good hitter? No doubt about it. Am I sold on him? Not a chance. Is that fair? Are all of those fair in summation? Yay or nay?
I agree but disagree because I'm just looking at the games he's played in, Hunter Green specifically. He
back up, teaching cases.
Pitched.
There you go.
My mistake.
Attaboy.
4 games were lost by 1 run. I mean, I'm not trying to defend him in terms of just as of recently. It's not been great. The month of May, he has a 5.73 ERA. That's not acceptable. But man,
he only has 1 start with more than 3 runs given up.
Yeah, like that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, that's not bad. Like, if you're,
it's very good.
Obviously, he's not like the all-star pitcher, but if your starting pitcher is averaging 2 to 3 runs a game, your offense should be able to help you.
The problem is his longevity. He's just not. He's not pitching long enough in games. I mean, bring that back up.
Yep. Like innings pitched.
Like we need him getting into the 7th here.
Yeah.
We don't need these guys that are going out there and then you got to rely on the bullpen for 4 to 5 innings. That just can't happen.
Well, and he saw front and center the other day what you want him to become. Now, I'm not suggesting that Hunter Green, it's an unrealistic expectation. It is. I don't care how much talent he is. It's an unrealistic expectation for him to become Justin Verlander. Justin Verlander's going to the Hall of Fame. But that's the guy that he pitched against the other day. Hunter Green throws roughly the same number of pitches in 5 innings, walking guys, whole 9 yards, whereas Verlander, only his 2nd start of the year. Maybe 1 start all year long before that game 2 days ago. 7 innings, right around 100 pitches, gives up 1 run, lets him put the ball in play. He's not walking anybody. He'll strike out guys because he's Justin Verlander. But, that's and I don't know how much pitchers, actually I do know. They don't pay attention to really being able to watch the starting pitcher of the other team in games in which they are pitching. But, if, say, Max Scherzer would have been pitching in the first game of the series, Hunter Green, no doubt, would have been sitting there and really paying attention to what Max Scherzer is doing on the mound. What's he doing when guys get 1st and 2nd and 1 out? What's he doing 2nd and 3rd, 1 out? What's he doing 1st and 2nd, nobody out? What's he doing in pitch counts? Greg Maddux used to say all the time, 0-2. Why am I throwing? How many times have all of us seen? Catcher gets behind the batter, starts holding the glove way up here, right? I mean, to waste a pitch to throw a fastball, and he just throws, and it's so high that the batter's not going to chase the ball. Wasted pitch. Now, for some guys, that can be effective if you're coming right back with a slider on 1 and 2 that the guy has no chance on, right? Hunter Green's not there yet. So you can't be wasting pitches. And guys like Verlander, Scherzer, the greats, they don't waste a lot of pitches. Greg Maddux used to talk about it all the time. He says, well, why am I going to throw another pitch that has no chance to result in an out, a strike, nothing? It's only going to be a ball, a wasted pitch, and that's why they call it a wasted pitch. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I would like to add to just the Hunter Green conversation, too, is right now I don't think there's anything to make you say that, that you should be all in on him. But the fact that he is 23
and
he's playing average right now, I think that there's a lot of hope there still, right? It's not like you're.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's the point. Is more or less that you believe that he can develop, and I think that's always been the case for him. But yeah, I mean, I just like George Santos said, he's average right now, and are we really expecting him to have blown up right now or to be at that all-star level at this moment?
I don't think that was a realistic expectation, and we had a number of guests on this show and asked them before this season ever began, if your team is not expected to be very good, what would be realistic expectations for this group of very talented young pitchers?
Yep.
In Ashcraft, Lodolo, Green. Number 1, good health. Amen. Number 2, start pitching deeper into games and accumulating innings, effective innings, right? Not just 5 innings, 3 runs. I mean, at the end of the day, that's not a disaster. 5 innings, 3 runs by any stretch of the imagination. It's not. Green's case, 5 innings, 2 runs the other day. But average, now his overall season earned run average, it's not too bad. He's in the mid 3s, upper edge of the 3s. But basically, every single game that he pitches, you're seeing, outside of 1 or 2 here and there, you're seeing a guy who's going 5 innings with 105, 107, 108 pitches, rarely going beyond 5 1/3, something like that. And most of the time, a number of walks, obviously a lot of strikeouts. So that means more and more pitches, obviously. He has been average. And I think it would be a realistic expectation with his talent that he should be a little better than average. Is that unrealistic to think?
No. I mean, I don't think so. I look at this team just as a whole, Tom, and I know everything you've just said. I don't know. I guess I lean more toward the glass half full that these guys will pan out. I'm trying to latch on to.
You asked me the question. It's not a matter of me looking at it half full or a half empty. I'm not looking at it that way. You just asked me what would it take.
Yeah.
If I remember right.
Yeah, no, that's right.
I think the question you asked me, what would it take for me to buy in?
Yes, that's right.
And all I'm saying is I acknowledge the guy has all the talent in the world.
Yes.
I acknowledge, Lodolo, Ashcraft, look, there's a lot to be excited about. But at the end of the day, you still have to go do it. And so I'm not going to let my hope get in the way of what I'm watching. I know that I can hope they do well, and they have the talent to do well. But are they doing well? And right now, I think they're pitching like a lot of second-year pitchers, right?
Yeah.
That are, you're going to have this. And we understand that. But I think you want to see, kind of like this. I think you want to see a little bit of this. You're going to get a little bit of that. I think you see a little bit of this. You get still a little bit of that. I think you want to see a little bit more of this. You're still going to have that. Might have a dip, but then I got to see coming back up again. Right? It's like a stock.
That's fair. Yeah, I agree with that.
When you buy the stock,
would you buy the stock?
Would I buy Hunter Green stock? I would buy Hunter Green stock, but what I would do is I would.
You would leverage in.
I would just, I'm drawing a blank on the term. I would be buying small chunks of that stock.
You would ease into it.
Yes. That's what I would be.
You're not taking options.
And I'm not dumping a pile of money into it right now. Not right. No Bobby Nightengale, huh?
No Bobby.
I just sent him a text.
Unless it's not the same email he's been using, but.
Maybe something's come up. I shot him a text and have not heard. PB's Go says I would be day trading on Hunter. No, I would not day trade on Hunter Green. I don't believe in day trading, period. But Chad wants to know Nolan Ryan or Bob Gibson. No doubt about it. Bob Gibson all day, every day. All day, every day.
I'll put it up for him just because he sent it. But yeah, you said Bob Gibson?
For sure. For sure. You talk about a member of NCN.
Bob Gibson.
He's right there. I know that, right? But believe me, and again, that's not taking anything away. You're just asking me about 2 guys, right? Gibson or Ryan. Ryan's a Hall of Famer. All-time leader in the history of the sport in strikeouts, unbelievably resilient body and arm and makeup and competitive and all that kind of thing. But I think Gibson at the end of the day was a better pitcher.
You know what we should do, Tom, because we've all been sitting here talking about now that we're getting into the depths of the Major League season, and we do have the PGA Championship coming up next week. FC Cincinnati, of course.
Try to get Steve Flesh back with us.
Yeah, we got a lot of things rolling here going forward, but as we get into May and June, everybody knows the sports calendar. You get more into baseball and everything else. You know what we should do, Tom? One of these days where it's maybe a slower day, like a Tuesday or a Wednesday, something like that. Let's get your all-time, of guys that you broadcasted, the Tom Brenneman. I'm not talking all-time baseball. I'm talking about guys you've been around. Let's get the nut cutter starting lineup. One guy at each position. The nut cutter starting lineup.
Just the guys I broadcast.
Sure. I mean, if maybe.
But they could be from other teams.
Yeah,
they could a playoff series or something like that, right?
Yeah,
we're not talking about all time.
I'm not saying like Cy
I didn't
Young.
broadcast any games. I might look like I'm old enough to broadcast games that Bob Gibson pitched in, but I'm not.
Not looking for Bob Gibson or Cy Young or any of those guys or Babe Ruth. None of those guys. I'm talking about your era till now, the all NCN team.
I want to like George Santos.
He's in jail. This George Santos.
Yeah, not the other one. And he's a Republican, and he's a clown. But he is. And most of the time, I like Republicans, as many of you know, but not this one. But George goes way off the reservation, asking, is John Rocker in NCN? Definitely not.
Can you give people a tease? Who leads off?
I can tell you
Just
right
one.
now, though, if one pitcher that I broadcast for, and again, people may not like his politics. I don't care. And I don't care about his politics. But one pitcher, one game for me to win tomorrow, not even remotely debatable. It's Curt Schilling. Not even remotely debatable. And just go look up the postseason numbers for Curt Schilling. One of the top 3 all time.
Randy?
Better than Randy in a nut. One game to win.
Not cutting time.
One game to win. Randy was the best regular season pitcher by far. I mean, when I was there in Arizona, he won 4 straight Cy Youngs. He was the best, and he was better. I mean, Maddox had some numbers in some seasons, but but Randy in the regular season. And I announced a lot of games in Greg Maddox's career with the Cubs. But one game to win. Not even close. I saw Clemens. Somebody asked about Andy Pettit. Saw him. Saw Randy. Saw Greg Maddox. Saw John Smoltz, who would be right there, not far behind Smoltz. Saw Glavine in the postseason. I could go right on down the list. Everybody from Mark Mulder to Barry Zito to, you name it. All these different teams through the years, and having a chance to broadcast postseason baseball, doing 10, 11 straight league championship series. But one game, no doubt, Curt Schilling. Those 3 games in the World Series of 2001. And again, we talked about this. You don't see it anymore. And you're never going to see it anymore because of analytics and because of all this kind of stuff. Curt Schilling and Roger Clemens started against each other in Game 1. Both of them pitched into the 8th inning. They started against each other in Game 5. Both pitched into the 8th inning. They started against each other in Game 7. And both went through the 7th. You don't see that anymore. That's getting it done. On top of the 260 or 70 innings they threw during the regular season. You don't see it. All right, Bobby Nightengale Jr. kind enough to join us. The clock is ticking on Bobby Nightengale Jr. The clock is ticking. Bobby, how much longer you have with Cincinnati.com and with the Enquirer?
Yeah, just 2 weeks now. Missed the original call for this just because I was on the call with movers, so kind of getting down there.
So have you already found a place to live in Minneapolis, or what's the deal?
still working on that, but sold our place here, so got to be out pretty soon.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, movers far more important, especially when you can get them on the phone. Okay. Now, let me ask you this. Look, I mean, the record might be under 500. We were talking a lot about this before you jumped on. But the bottom line is, I don't care if the Mets are slumping, and they're definitely slumping. A really nice 3-game series against New York for the Redlegs.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's one of those, if you want to be a better team, you have to beat up on teams that are struggling. I felt like the Reds kind of missed an opportunity there against the White Sox, another struggling team at the beginning of the homestand. And then they took kind of care of business against the Mets. I mean, they were a little fortunate. They got to miss Max Scherzer in the opener, but ended up winning that game, producing 7 runs. I mean, you're going to win most nights. Lost a close one against Verlander, 2-1. Hunter Green in the bullpen kind of stood up in that one when Green didn't have his best stuff, and then getting a 5-0 win against Senga, the new pitcher they have there. Yeah, the Mets aren't playing great. Their offense is struggling, but it's also, you could look at the payroll disparities, and
yep.
I mean, the Mets have a lot of advantages there that the Reds don't have, and for the Reds to be competitive in terms of not making the playoffs, I think that's kind of pushing it a little bit. But if you look at just being competitive, like a 70-win team, these are the series that you kind of see growth compared to maybe the end of last season when they really struggled last September with a lot of this same group they have now.
Bobby, you're down there talking to David Bell. You're down there talking to the players every single day. And I hear this topic debated a lot. We do it in here. I hear it on radio talk shows about, why am I going to get behind there? And I know it's not you're not in the business of getting behind the Reds and telling people to go to games. That's not your job. You don't work for them. But I'm curious, when you're down there, and I'm really interested in the answer to this question, do you feel like they are, happy that they're playing much better than people had anticipated? Or do you get the sense that they know they are still a 500 team and there is a desire to be far more than that right now, despite what the rest of us say about their talent level?
Yeah, I mean, I think they look at it as they expected to be better than most people thought they would be this year. I think I can't remember the player who mentioned it, but someone mentioned a couple of days ago where it was like they look at the standings and they see the Pittsburgh Pirates in first place, and it's like, why can't we be what the Pittsburgh Pirates are? That's another team that lost 100 games last year, another team that's coming out of a rebuild. So I mean, I think when that happens, when you see the Cardinals get off to the start they've had, the Brewers dealing with a bunch of injuries, the Cubs are kind of middling around 500. I know the players look at it as, okay, it's a winnable division. The Pirates got off to a hot start. They've been really bad the past 2 weeks, and still, I think, are in first place. So, I mean, it's one of those, can you hang around long enough, and then, things might start happening. They know there's a lot of prospects that kind of run, doing well in AAA. Fans want to see kind of the next wave of prospects come up. But there's a lot of confidence in this current group, and I think a lot of the players, they learned a lot from last year. Last year, they started off as poorly as anybody's ever done it, in the past in Reds history. Lost 100 games. I mean, dealing with that and then kind of coming into spring where they kind of had a chance to reset. I just feel like there's a lot of confidence within the group saying, we're better than outside expectations.
All right, last thing I want to ask you about, Hunter Green. We were just having the conversation, and you and I had this conversation when you joined us going back to Goodyear, Arizona, about, asking you what would be realistic expectations for Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Graham Ashcraft, et cetera, et cetera. How do you evaluate Hunter Green's performance so far this year?
I think as a second-year starting pitcher, it's been as good as they could have hoped. He's continuing to make progress. Yeah, there's some areas like he's got to start pitching deeper into games. Probably needs to become a little bit more efficient with his pitches. But you have to remember, I mean, this is a guy who didn't have a ton of minor league experience when he got to the majors. Still one of the 5 youngest pitchers in the big leagues, I believe. So, I mean, if you look at it in terms of that, you're like, okay, wow, there's still a lot of potential, still a lot of room for him to grow. I think if you look at it in terms of he's your number 1 starter on the Cincinnati Reds and he doesn't have a win yet, that's where it kind of becomes a little bit more, okay, we want to see a little bit more they gave him the contract extension. But I think you kind of have to take them both as they are. I mean, as a young pitcher, I think the progress he's shown. I mean, Nick Lodolo's kind of on the other side of the coin where, it's not guaranteed you continue to develop the way he has, where he's kind of picked up where he picked off the second half of last year. I mean, struggles will happen. So the fact he's largely avoided those, I mean, he's kind of limited the damage when he has gotten into trouble. That's a good sign. But for the Reds, I mean, they want him to become their ace, and I don't think that's far away. I mean, I think you can see signs of that. There's just still steps he needs to do, experience he needs to gain, and I just think it's kind of where the Reds are, where he's their number one starter versus maybe if they had a Luis Castillo, Sonny Gray, those guys. If he was like your number 3 or number 4, you'd be thrilled with what he was doing.
Well, guys like Paul and Casey, if they were down where you are right now, Bobby, in Miami, we'd be lucky to get them out of bed. They'd have been out on South Beach last night. I'm assuming a guy like you is going to be a little bit more well-behaved than these two characters. But look, I would highly endorse getting out for 1 or 2 in South Beach, but I don't know if you will. But have fun down there in Florida.
Yeah, I mean, it's the weekend, South Beach, but on the air, you have to say you're working. So,
amen.
Always working.
Amen. Absolutely. Bobby, thanks for your time, man. I appreciate it. We'll visit again next week before you get out of town, I hope.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Okay, Bobby Nightengale Jr. It reminds me, Paul, of your act in New York City.
Well, that's right, Tom. You got to make use of traveling and
Bob
make use of the time away.
Bob had clearly been up. He was fresh. He's making phone calls. He's getting stuff done. When we had you, you're rolling out of the rack after a late night in New York City.
No doubt. Long night of work, and then a long night to have a little reward.
I'm with you. I'm in that camp all the way. All right. One of our favorites. He was my favorite, period, of having last year. And when we started having him on about, 3/4 of the way through the season. Former Cincinnati Bengals great wide receiver Tim McGee started to join us. And Tim's done a lot of radio here in town through the years and dissecting the Bengals. And, I got to thinking, okay, schedule's out, off season, all the different moves the Bengals have made. It's time to catch back up with Tim McGee and get his thoughts on all of this stuff going on. And he is kind enough to have said yes again. We're very, very grateful. Number 85, how are you, young man? You never aged a day. You never aged a day. I'm so jealous. You look so damn good. My hair's falling out. Whatever's left of it, it's white. And you just continue to look like you learn.
See, I'm like Bobby Nightengale Jr. I'm sitting here. He's in South Beach. I'm about 30 miles north up in Fort Lauderdale. So there lies the I won't call it problem. There lies the fountain of youth. I'm going to call it that, considering if I'm here in good weather and I got the beach, less stress, more smiles, and I get to tease all the people back home. Now I'm coming back home next week, but pretty much spend the winters down here.
Okay. Well, good for you. But I got to tell you, I worked as a college student for about 6 weeks. We were off during Christmas break, and I lived down there in Lauderdale with another buddy of mine. Tim, you can find something going on in Lauderdale if you want to find it. You don't have to look very hard.
Hey, I don't think you have to look for it. I think it'll find you. I think what you have to do down here, you have to dodge it. It's like no eye contact. You got to keep your eye contact at pretty much eye level and just move about your way. And when you're going down the sidewalk on the strip, you just, it's like you glance over or take a peek and then you get back in line.
Yeah, that was my problem. I took more than a peek and I never got back in line. Maybe that's why I'm sitting here now. I don't know. All right, Tim, I ask the question all the time, and this is a big picture thing. I ask the question all the time, as I think every single sports organization, business organization should ask, right? When you move from one year to the next, are the Cincinnati Bengals better today after everything that's gone on during the offseason? And I don't want to ask the question based on who started on their offensive line once they got into the AFC Championship game after all the injuries. I don't mean it that way, okay? I'm saying their team, where they had that offensive line that started for 15 straight weeks, They had a healthy Chase. They had a healthy Boyd. They had a healthy Higgins, all that kind of thing. They were healthy on defense. Are the Bengals better today than they were at the end of last year?
I don't think so. And the reason I say that, they lost their third level of defense. And I think that is going to have a huge impact on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, yeah, they upgraded the offensive line in Orlando Brown Jr. And, but that's an unknown that's yet to be seen. But we know what those two guys, Von Bell and Jesse Bates, meant to that defense, and not having them, that's going to be that could be a huge negative impact.
Let me ask you this. I want to break that down position-wise. When you talk about two brand-new safeties, now Nick Scott has played in the league for a few years. I mean, he's been around the block. Started last year with the Rams. Not a ton of experience, but started last year. You have Hill, who's going to be starting back there for the first time this year. Bates and Bell walk out the door, as you just mentioned. Early in the season, would you suspect, I think the easy thing is most people say, well, that's going to be questionable against the opponent's passing game. Is that accurate, or would you be more concerned about that position as it pertains to an opponent's run game? Because the first two games of the year, they're going to get two run-heavy teams in the Browns and the Ravens.
I say it's going to affect them in the run game more so than the passing game, and here's why. When you look at Jesse Bates was your defensive quarterback. I mean, he put everyone in the right spot. He's, you hear that cliche. He's the coach on the field, players coach, that kind of stuff. But he really played that well, and he played that role very well. And with Lou, you get a guy like Jesse Bates, and you get Lou to think, okay, I'm very comfortable with this guy who's the only player on the defensive side that sees the entire field. He sees 10 players. He knows where they're supposed to be. Tom, I could not tell you from the passing game. I'll get to the run game. I could not tell you. You get one guy out of position, and people think out of position means, oh, man, he's on the wrong side of the line of scrimmage. Of course not. He's on the wrong side of the football. Of course not. That could happen. However, out of position is just 2 steps. You are 2 steps up at the NFL level. If you're 2 steps out of position, you're in major, major trouble. So that's number one. As far as the run game, that's where Von Bell comes in. Von Bell was an excellent, and will continue to be, an excellent run supporter. So when you give up something in the pass game and something in the run game, although, like you said, playing Cleveland and Baltimore the first 2 games, they're going to be pretty much run-happy teams. More than likely, you're going to get a heavy dose of Nick Chubb, and Baltimore is going to give you Lamar Jackson, who can run just as well as pass. That could be a challenge. Early on in the season is what I always worry about any professional team, especially the Bengals, because when you do have the changes, if you get behind in the record, unfortunately for the Bengals or any AFC team, whether it be Cleveland, Baltimore, or Pittsburgh, the problem you face is now you're losing not only a conference game, you're losing a division game. So, I'm a little worried about the third line of defense.
Okay, well, if you were to look at Scott and Hill back there, which guy? I'm imagining, I have to believe it for no other reason, experience, that Scott would have to become Jesse Bates. Is that fair to say?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, go ahead, please. I want to hear what you have to say about this.
Yes, he has the experience, but not with that defense, that defensive coordinator, that defensive personnel, and inside that locker. That doesn't mean he will not be able to obtain it over a period of time, but not in that environment. It's like any other job. You have to go in and get acclimated. And once you get acclimated, you'll be more comfortable. But more so, are the other players around you comfortable? And when I mean comfortable, are they comfortable that you will be able to make the right calls and put them in the right positions?
I want to stay in the back end of the defense here for a second because we know Mike Hilton's coming back. He's been a hell of a player for this team since they brought him on. That's one of the best signs they've had, along with Bell, and they've had some other ones. They've had some good signs, but those 2 guys have really been good players for this team as free agents. Awuzie is coming back from an ACL, right? Eli Apple walks out the door, okay? Trey Flowers walks out the door. How concerned? They bring in Sidney Jones, veteran guy, highly touted guy at one point, got hurt. He started at various points in his career. And then they go out in the draft and they draft a safety and they draft a corner. What are your thoughts at cornerback for this team? Because there's some change there as well.
It's identical to the safeties. I understand the individual talent. I give individual talent a lot of credit. But the cohesiveness of your defense is not like the offense. The cohesiveness of the defense, you guys got to play well together. When we talk about the offensive line, we talk about them playing enough games together that they're on the same page. It's the exact same situation on the defensive side. When you have those corners and they're coming in, Awuzie, we talk about it coming in. What a great cornerback. We know what he's done in the past. But let's face it, ACL probably won't come back 100% of the player that we know. He'll probably be maybe in that 80 percentile. And that's, trust me, that's better than most corners. But the cohesiveness, the chemistry, the understanding of the concept of the defense, those are the things that I concern myself with the Bengals, in that when I'm watching the game, and I see a blown coverage or a miscommunication or a false alignment, those are the things that drives coaches absolutely nuts, because it's too tough of a football game to make mental mistakes. And that's why I compare that. The corners are no different than the safeties. And I think it's the whole secondary that we're going to have to worry about. Not to say they can't get it done, but those are areas of major concerns.
Okay. You have worn so many different hats, and this is why I love having you on, because I can ask you questions where you're able to put yourself in something you've done for a living, and at one time you were an agent.
Correct.
Okay, so now help me with this, because I had a big problem with this, and maybe when you put your agent hat on, maybe you don't. But I think so many things about life are not only the decisions you make, right, good versus bad, but also, your timing on those decisions, okay? Jonah Williams, the day the Bengals signed Orlando Brown Jr., and they didn't sign this guy to come here and play right tackle. The second they sign him, they bring him in to be the highest paid tackle in the history of football, okay? Unbelievable move for the Bengals. That in and of itself was just, I don't think anybody could believe it happened. And it did. So now all of a sudden that means that Jonah Williams, who is guaranteed over $12.5 million this year, is going to be asked to move to right tackle. Within hours after signing Brown, his agent comes out and is demanding a trade to get out of Cincinnati. Would you have handled that way if you were Jonah Williams' agent?
Well, it depends on what went on behind the scenes. How much conversation did I have with the Bengals organization, the management, and, of course, the coaches, and, of course, my client, which would have been Jonah Williams. Then I would have made a determination of what's in the best interest of my client. I'm not worried about the Cincinnati Bengals. They're going to be here for the next, they're going to be here when I'm long gone. But I would worry about one person and one person only, and that's Jonah Williams. So was it premature? They probably, I'm guessing, Tom, they probably had already anticipated that if something like that happened, what their next move would be. And for the betterment, remember, I personally think Jonah Williams struggled at left tackle. Now you're going to move him to right tackle. Well, again, I know it has the commonality of tackle. It's a tackle position, but it's two totally different positions with two totally different footworks. The footwork is totally different. So with that being said, Tom, I won't criticize him. I would pretty much commend him on getting the word out there that my client is available.
Okay, all right. So now put yourself in the position of being Jonah Williams' agent, and he's still here. He would have a choice to make. I either go play right tackle, try to win that job, because I think there's going to be some competition for that job, despite the fact that he's getting paid a lot of money. There's always a possibility you get into training camp, another team has a left tackle that they're not happy with, and they want to make a change. God forbid there's an injury, but those do happen in football regularly. Good Lord willing they don't, but they do. So, maybe there's a chance down the road, depending on what the Bengals see out of Carmen and see out of Lyle Collins and him coming back and all that kind of thing. Would you say to your client, hey, look, I know we want to be a left tackle down the road, but right now we got to be all in on playing right tackle?
I would ask my client that first and foremost, and I would gather by the information that's come out that Jonah Williams does not really, I guess, right tackle is not exciting him as far as his long-term playing career. So with that being said, I think the model's already out there and it's been out there. You look at a Lamar Jackson. I mean, Jonah Williams is guaranteed his $12.5 million. So, this would be a tough pill for most people to swallow. I would tell my client, listen, you are your CEO of your own company. You have to protect your biggest asset, which is your body. Go out there and protect your body at all costs. So, you're going to make business decisions from this point out. And we're in the same, Jesse Bates did it, and he was in a similar situation. So when a player is unhappy and they're going into their contract year, remember, our mindset as a player is when we go into our contract year, now we're going to get that generational wealth. It's right there. It's literally 6 months from us. It's 6 months from my great grandkids being financially secured. So you have to make business decisions. And I know Joe Fan find that very difficult. Oh, you have a contract, you should play. You're right. However, I don't know what world you live in, but when $12.5 million sounds excellent, great, phenomenal, I'll take it. Me personally, give it here. However, if I know I got another $100 million out there and I'm potentially leaving on the table, I got to tell my client, advise my client to make business decisions when it comes to playing the game of football. Make a business decision, and sometimes that means, you don't make that extra effort that you would have if you were in a more comfortable position going after that something you so desired.
All right, now let me ask you to put back on your cap as a teammate. Okay? Big things are expected out of this Bengals offense. I maintain, and I get a lot of people that yell and scream at me here in the chat, even here in the room. I maintain the defense was good enough to win a Super Bowl last year, and with all the big names and the big stars, it was the offense that let this team down when it needed just field goals. It needed first downs the most, and this ballyhooed offense could not get it done. There's reason to believe they could be even better this year. So let me start with you on a couple of names here. If you're a part of the starting group of the Cincinnati Bengals on offense, wide receiver, which you used to play, you got to protect your quarterback if you're going to be able to catch passes. Should there be a legitimate competition at right tackle on who starts? Because I thought Carmen played pretty well last year at tackle. Granted, it was left tackle. He's got more the prototypical body type. I think he grew up a little bit last year. Collins is coming back from a knee. Should there be open competition for that position?
Well, I think the answer, it's a complex answer. And here's the way I see it. Number one, as they say, no player should lose their starting position because of injury because they're out there on the battlefield. So that's one aspect of it. Carmen played well. Okay, great. Now, how will Collins come back? Will he come back healthy? Again, when you have ACL injuries, I don't think players come back 100%. It's pretty much in, like I said, that 80 percentile. Should there be competition? There should always be competition. There should be competition at every position on every game. When you are in a position that the Bengals have, I have to give the most credit I will ever give the Bengals is where they started and where they are now. Now it's about depth. It's about competition. No one besides, per se, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and maybe T. Higgins and a couple other guys can really rest on their laurels of what they've done in the past. There's someone there that if you're not doing your job effectively over a consistent period of time, someone's there to push you and or replace you. That's a wonderful thing. But do I think it should be competition in that particular position? I think, if I may add, the better question would be who should start the football season off? Which person do they pencil in as the starter? That's going to be the most difficult question that the coaching staff is going to, because one guy saying, hey, that was my job and I was playing very effectively before I got hurt. The other guy said, dude, the last snap, I was playing great. How could you replace me?
Yeah.
Good problem to have.
Well, that's a great point. That's a great, and you know as well as I do, money becomes a factor in this thing sometimes too. I mean, you're paying one guy $12.5 million, you're paying Carmen next to nothing, you know, and Collins is a wild card in this deal. Okay, same question now. Much has been made of Joe Mixon. We're getting close to this June 1st deadline. We know some of the things. Mixon's been a hell of a player for this team, and up until this offseason, he has been a model citizen off the field. Up until this, and now this offseason has been. This has not been a good offseason, regardless of what's decided in the courts. It's not been a good offseason. Just not good. Do you suspect, and again, I want to put you the agent hat back on for a minute. If they come to Burrow or come to Mixon and they say, hey, listen, man, we got to restructure this deal a little bit, you going to do it?
First, the question is why? Why are we restructuring? And I'm pretty sure the Bengals are smart enough to say, Katie Blackburn will say, hey, in order to sign T. Higgins and Joe Burrow, we need to restructure this deal. So you see how the framing is? The framing is, I need you to take one for the team, opposed to, hey, listen, we're kind of just trying to decide on bringing you back or not, and an important element of that is going to be your willingness or unwillingness to take a pay cut. Well, now it's personal. Then as an agent, Tom, I am out representing my client in the event that something happens here in Cincinnati. Hey, you're on the phone with the general managers and the players that be. Or powers that be. I'm sorry. You're on the phone and you're trying to gauge the market for your client. Because remember something, if they release him, he's a free agent. Conceivably, he can get more money than he's getting with the Bengals and a longer term. So from an agent standpoint, we only look at it from the business element. We're not looking at it as in, my client's going to win a Super Bowl there. So, my client has a window of opportunity to maximize the dollars he makes in the National Football League. And that's our position, and that's our only position. All the other things, you hand the client the information and let the client make the ultimate decision.
You think Joe Mixon is the starting running back in Cleveland week 1?
Yes. I don't think the Bengals could really afford, from a pass protection standpoint, I don't think they can afford to take another risk in having another guy back there that may not be as proven as a Joe Mixon. And yes, he's been that ideal citizen up to this point. And, again, judge it as he may, he still is one heck of a football player. And, I think it's a great problem to have. The problem is you don't have P. Ryan. He's gone. He walked out the door, and now your depth is gone, and now there's a question there. And Joe Mixon probably should give P. Ryan some of his money, because if P. Ryan was still on the roster, that question you asked about taking a pay cut would have been a definite yes.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Tim McGee, you're always on your game. We thank you for your flexibility. We always thank you for your time, my friend, and we look forward to you getting back into town, and we'll get out to dinner one night, I hope, when you get back into town.
I'm going to take you up on that. I got the bill. All right, buddy. Thanks for having me.
All right, Tim. I'll see you later, man. See you. Have a great day and have a good weekend. What a great dude. I just think he brings such a unique perspective because of all the different things he's done. You know what I mean?
I agree.
He's able to just, you heard him talking about, and we haven't talked about that whole thing with Jonah and how he would look at that just from a strictly future standpoint, right? Very interesting. Very. Look, somebody's bringing up Mixon about what happened with him in college. We know what happened with him in college. We know that. I had just said since he got here and until this offseason, you can't argue Mixon's been a good guy. He's been a good guy. But now all of a sudden, we'll see how the whole court thing plays out. But, somebody just said here a second ago, OJ's 94 Bronco, and he's right. Mixon, if the Bengals had a Hall of Fame, one day he would be in it. He's been a really good player here. Really good. I mean, he's never James Brooks. I've said all the time, James Brooks is by far the best running back they've ever had in this franchise, and the numbers back it up. But Mixon's been a heck of a player. All right.
Time for the greatest 10 minutes of the show. Here we go. So Reed is on his way right now with a board event down to Nashville, which is why we have no box lunch, and which is also why Casey is now in charge of the chat power rankings. Now, I should say, these power rankings, Casey has written them out by hand. He made graphics for all of them. He wrote reasons for everybody. He put a lot of thought into this.
All right, let's take a break.
All right.
And our last 10 minutes, this is like the grand finale. For the first time, Casey will be giving out our weekly winners in the Off the Bench chat. Gentlemen.
It's that time of the show, the Ham and Eggers. These guys are great, trust me, I would know. I introduce all the best segments.
Got the keys now.
Keys.
The hangers have turned into the keys up there at the top.
So the one thing I want to talk about before because we didn't really get to it very much, the Bengals schedule wise, I like I said before, I think the middle of the season is really, really hard, but the back part, I mean, you play Steelers, Chiefs, Browns. That part is also very difficult as well.
You're giving the Browns some credit?
Well, just probably by the time we play the Browns, we're sitting our guys.
That's right.
But in case we lose that game to the Chiefs, like that game is very important for us to win, just so then we can potentially get by in that number 1 seed with the better record. But it is very strange that the schedule makers made it so that the Browns were the first game and the very last game of the season. It means that they think that there's some chance that the Browns will probably be fighting for that number 1 seed. You can tell a lot by how they structure some of this stuff, how things are going to go, but or how they think that they'll go. But overall, I know Tom said that we have a difficult schedule, but our strength of schedule is actually one of the weaker ones in the whole league this year. So there's no excuse, excuses.
And they travel the fewest amount of miles.
Right. I mean,
whatever that means.
Right. They also, I think, have one of the most scheduled 4 p.m. games in the whole season, because that was one of the things I wanted to bring up, why we only have 4 primetime games, potentially 5. There's a ton of games scheduled at 4:30. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 games alone that are scheduled at 5. There's only 6 1 p.m. games. So if you're one of the few people that think, well, that is somewhat of a prime time slot, I'm in that category. I think of that 4 p.m. game as like a pseudo prime time slot. Bengals got a lot of those this year. They got 5. They got 4 prime time games. So really, they've got 9 or more games that are not at your normal 1 p.m. slot.
Yep.
Means more time to party it up and tailgate. Am I
right?
All
tanked up, Tom.
Get all tanked up.
Gotta get all tanked. If you had to pick one game, before we get to the list, if you had to pick one game you would go to, you had the whole weekend off, right? You could leave on a Thursday night and come back home, let's say Monday morning, right? Where you could totally get after it, however you choose to define it. On a Friday, Saturday, Sunday night of all the Bengals road games, where would you go?
So Reed, we talked about this yesterday off the air. I would probably go to Tennessee just because I know the stadium is not great. Nissan Stadium is a terrible stadium. But I would like going back to Nashville. I haven't done that trip. I have no interest in going to Kansas City. I have no interest in going to Pittsburgh. No interest in going to Cleveland. If Jacksonville was away, I would go to Jacksonville.
It is away.
It is away.
Oh, it is? I thought that was a home game.
No, that's a night game.
All right.
Let's get in the pool.
Let's go to the pool,
Let's
Tom.
get in the
Let's get
pool.
all tanked up. Let's go. I'm going to Jacksonville. That's my answer. I'm amending it. Jacksonville is my answer.
Is the Vikings at Cincinnati?
Yes, it is.
Okay. was gonna say
Minnesota.
It'd be kind of well, they're dome.
Minnesota.
They're in the dome.
It's a great town. It used to be a great town. It's kind of gone south last couple of years, like a lot of other places. I think Casey, did you pick one before we get to the list? Would it be Tennessee, Nash, Vegas?
Oh man. If I had to pick, it would probably be Jacksonville. That'd be kind of like a bucket list thing because I've always wanted to get in the pool and watch a football game.
All right, we're going to Jacksonville.
That'd be mine. But if I was different, if I was trying to be different, I would probably want to go to San Fran.
Yeah, you'd be staying out though, and you wouldn't be staying in. Well, I mean, you could because you could actually on Friday night, Saturday night, you could get out in downtown San Francisco. Although, boy, was there a piece written yesterday about that town. But
I saw that.
yeah, I mean,
I
that
saw
was
that.
coming from an uber liberal
I
reporter.
saw that.
You saw that,
Yeah,
who had gotten tired of hearing about how bad San Francisco was and being run in the ground. And then she went out there, and it was worse than she had even read about. Brutal. Anyway, those two. End of the day, I got to probably go to Vegas, Nash, Vegas, just because you can walk to the stadium.
Yep.
Stay
That's
downtown
fair.
and walk to the stadium. That's key. All right, Casey, here we go. We got 5 minutes left. Where are we?
Chat power rankings. All right, fellas, this is it right here.
Oh boy, here we go.
All right, so my number one, I got Nathan Hines.
Wow.
My biggest supporter, banning everyone that opposes me. And then, of course, I got Alexandra Hines, my future wife.
Wow.
My best man, Thomas Oldham, right at number 3. My dad at number 4. And Reed Mouse.
Dude, you are losing a lot
Are you
of
kidding me?
credibility here. I mean, come on.
We waited all week for this?
I mean, you've got 4 basic family members going 2, 3, 4, and 5. This thing's going to blow up.
What do you mean? I thought that was a perfect power rankings, but I'll put it up again because I don't know if
This
you guys
is
can.
unbelievable.
I don't know if you guys can read the subtitle. It says fake.
Oh, he got us.
I got y'all.
He got
You
us.
thought I was gonna do my whole family and read. No, come on. I'm gonna start with number 5. Then I'll go all the way to number 2.
All right, let's do it.
Do you have any honorable mentions?
Well, I'm gonna do honorable mentions at number 2.
Okay,
That
that's
way-
good.
that
That's
way
good. I
we-
like this, Casey.
Yeah. All right. So number 5, I got Ronnie Smith. He's a newcomer.
What is this picture?
That's his profile.
Is that his
picture.
profile picture?
Yep.
I can't.
Profile picture on YouTube. He is a guy
And who is this?
Ronnie Smith.
Okay, Ronnie Smith. Okay.
He is a guy that is just wanting to talk sports. Always ask us to stay on sports, and I commend that a little bit. He's consistently watching us. He has some really good takes too. He takes the number 5 spot.
Solid. We thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, thank you, Ronnie Smith. At number 4, which I kind of just teased, is George Santos.
Whoa!
A late riser in the Pat Chow rankings. Has some really great one-liners today. Somehow he watches from jail. He's a bit of a wild card in the chat. So, I mean, he's the number 4 for me this
He
week.
just chimed in. Thank you. After telling Ronnie, congratulations.
Yes.
That's big league. That's first class, George.
Next up, PB's Ghost.
PB, the
PB's
cat.
Ghost. He's always staying on topic in chat. He's witty, consistent, and someone that preaches Nutcutter Nation values.
Yes.
Okay. Love PB's Ghost. He's awesome. He's my number 3.
He disappeared here near the end of the show. Go ahead.
He comes in and out.
Okay.
My next one, Brian B.
Oh, boy.
He's
Good for
been
you, Brian B.
He's been a guy that's been in the chat power rankings before, but he's one of the first founders of.
He says he is the first founder.
He is one of the first founders of Nutcutter Nation. He stays on topic a lot. He's calm, collected, and clever. He also came up with a great nickname for me. Not that I want to take credit for that, but Cantankerous Clawhammer is that was pretty clever. So he's my number 2. And honorable mentions. I have a ton of people on this list, and they're in order.
Ooh,
they're in order.
They're in
folks.
order.
These are my list of people in order. Sir Boy just barely missed out in the top 5.
Wow.
He just got nudged out by George Santos there at the end, man. I mean, he just rose up the list.
George came on strong today.
He did.
George had himself a week, no
He
matter
did.
how you look at it.
Yep.
He did.
He did.
Boom shakalaka. He's a voice of reason in our chat. The Real Spirit Cat 1. He's been an OG with us for a long time. USA veteran retired. Salute to you. Nathan Hines, Banhammer. Thomas Oldham, my best man. Jordan Earhart, he doesn't always come on our show all the time, but he always checks in every once in a while. Same with CJ. And then Everett Henry and OJ's Bronco. You guys got into that spat, and that just kind of tanked the ratings for me. I didn't like that too much. So that's why you guys are at the bottom. But you're still in the honorable mentions, so I still like you. I don't know what was going on there. I didn't like that
Boy
much.
is not happy, but go ahead.
I'm sure he's not.
He's not.
And, of course, that leads number 1, someone that you all know and love, someone that didn't make honorable mentions. That's Chad Waits, one of the founders of Nutcutter Nation, leader of ELE, isn't afraid to fight
ELE?
the system. Yeah, everyone love everyone. Isn't
Never
afraid.
heard of ELE.
Isn't
Heard
afraid.
of ELO, the band, but never ELE.
Isn't afraid to fight the system. He stood up to me. He stood up to me when it mattered most for this chat, and he believes in everyone in the chat. He is my number 1 for this week. Chad Waits, congratulations on being number 1 in the chat power rankings.
Chad Waits, $5. He's honored. I really thought you were going to throw Chad at number 2, Brian at number 1, and wait for Reed to give Chad number 1 next week. I thought that was how this was going to go. I told you not to show me. I wanted to be surprised. That was good stuff, Casey.
Mouse Cop, I totally just...
That's who I thought you were going to
shoulda-
name as the winner when I saw the list.
Well, I gave Mouse Cop number 1 last week.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I didn't want to just put him up there again. You should have been in the honorable mentions. That's my bad.
Well, I
That's
got
my
to tell
bad.
you, buddy. I got to tell you, because she has already jumped in. I have to tell you. Okay? Now this, you're not married yet.
No.
Okay? So there are going to be a lot of nights once you do after early June where you will get into bed at night and you are in the doghouse for one reason or another. You're about to get a very early taste of that starting tonight. Because you assembled an entire honorable mention list, which looked like the college basketball coaches polling, where they give about 70 teams, right?
Yeah.
After the top 25. You just ripped off a laundry list of about 10 or 11 or 12, whatever it was, and not one of them included the name Alexandria Hines.
Well, she chimes in every once in a while,
Not consistent.
but she's not consistent.
Gotta be
and that's
consistent, Alex.
important. That's important. You got to chat.
Do you call her
Consistently.
Alex or Alexandria?
Call her Alex. I go back and forth.
Okay, well, Alex, you got to be consistent. And the chat is one thing. As a married woman is a different ballgame.
Look what Nathan just threw in here.
Oh, your father-in-law. Sorry, Casey. You just came in as honorable mention as the top 5 dude wanting to marry my daughter.
Oof.
Boy, it could be a very ugly Mother's Day celebration.
Yeah, this is not looking good for me.
This is not shaping up well.
We,
All right, boys.
We are going to have a lot to talk about on Monday, it sounds like.
We are.
Between Mother's Day and Saturday night, sounds like Monday's going to be a packed show. Oh, wait, you're not here Monday.
I'm not. I have actually. I've had a lot of dates I've been missing here. Yesterday I was a little bit under the weather, but I've missed a lot here lately. This should be the last one coming up. Where our son, today's his last day of school. I can't believe it. I just can't believe it. We can get more into that on Monday, but Monday is a very big day for him and others in his graduating class, they all find out in a big, huge gathering assembly with parents there about kids that are winning scholarships in different things. You know, all the different scholarships are announced. And Chad says, I have given up my spot to Alexandria High. Now, that's a big leaguer.
That is big league.
You said he cares about us all.
And you wonder why I put him at number 1. You wonder why. Even though we got into that spat, even though he's a Goshen fella.
Felon?
Felon.
Goshen felon?
Fella.
Oh, okay.
Fella.
I'm sorry. All right. Thought we were drifting into George again. Go
Even
ahead.
with all that, all the other characteristics of Chad Waits just outweigh that. So
You're a big man, Casey.
he's a bigger man than me.
Bengals signed Miles Murphy. Should mention that.
Okay. They signed him.
And anything else? Anything else before
that
we
it?
get out of here?
So, okay.
That was our cherry on top, the power rankings. Our Friday cherry on top was the Casey power rankings, and Casey has his bachelor party this weekend. Is there anything else that we have not checked a box of? I think we've done everything today, Tom.
Okay. Yeah. I think we're in good shape. Nicely done, fellas.
Yeah.
Nicely done. We thank Tommy G. We thank Bobby Nightengale Jr. We thank Tim McGee. We thank Casey McAllister and Paul Fritchner. And we thank all of you for being with us. Another very, very busy week. Full speed ahead next week. Look, you two guys still have your moms around, right?
Yep.
Going to get a chance to see them, I hope, this weekend.
I will.
For all of you who have your moms around, please enjoy it and cherish every minute of it. We kid around a lot on the show. I lost my mom a long time ago, 15 years ago. And I'd do anything in the world to have her back for one day to celebrate Mother's Day and all she did for my sister and me. And all of you, please celebrate Mom, okay, whether she's with us or not. So have a great weekend, and to all the moms out there, happy Mother's Day. We'll see y'all next week.